All right, so character creation. That's what we're going to be doing during this first session, is creating a character. So this is probably the most involved part of the game. Once your character is created, um, you don't really have to worry very much about anything else as far as rules or anything else goes. That's all going to be taken care of by me. Once you have your character, you are good. There's nothing else that you really need to know rules wise other than about your character and how it functions. So when we go into character creation, this is where you get to decide, if you want to be an elf or a dwarf, and once you've decided on the race, what sort of character class you would want to be. So do you want to be a elven magic user, a dwarven warrior, a halfling thief? And just so you know, a halfling is basically, it's a hobbit. That's what it is. So once again, if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, you'll know something about these different races and whatnot. And I would say if you're going to look at anything in the player's handbook beforehand, and you don't want to sit down and read the whole thing, so, which you don't have to at all. It's like I say, it's a reference book. I mean, if you enjoy it, I mean, go right ahead, dive in. But the one part that I would suggest that you look into a little bit beforehand is a section on character races, to get an idea of what the different races are and how they act, so you can decide if that's one that you want to play. So for example, if you want to play a character that enjoys nature and music and singing and frolicking in the woods, and that's an elf is for you. But there are little descriptions, they're just a few paragraphs long, about the different races, and which describes their what they're like, their temperament, where they live, and things like that. There also might be a few rulesy reference things, and if you don't understand them, don't worry about that at this point. I am more interested in you knowing about how the races, what they're like, and how they behave. So feel free to go in and look into that part, if you like. But and also you could also look at the different character classes too, like fighter and thief, because once you've decided your race, then you get to decide what class you want to be. And certain races can be certain classes, and they can't be other certain classes. So race is going to be like elf, dwarf, halfling, gnome, etc. Classes are going to be magic user, fighter, cleric, druid. So you can be a dwarf fighter, a elven magic user, a human ranger, things like that. That's pretty much going to define your character right there. So those are the only parts that you really can look at if you would like to. And if not, even if you don't look at the player's handbook at all before we come in, that is okay, because I can refer you to those sections then in there, and we can go over them together. So, but its character creation is where all of this dice rolling comes in, rolling like your height and how old you are and all these different things. So this is probably the part that I would consider to be the most sort of complicated, because once your character is created, that's it. You have your character. It's right there on a piece of paper in front of you. You know how you're going to play it, and you don't really need to know any rules beyond that you have on your character sheet right there, because I'm going to be doing everything else. Your character's ready to go on adventures. I'll be describing the world, the scenarios, where you go to, and so on, and so on, and so on. So I will say, character creation, some people find it really fun. I remember there was a group in when I owned the toy store. There was we sold Dungeons and Dragons books there, and there was a group of kids who wanted to start Dungeons and Dragons, and I always have my basement open as a game room for playing card games or whatever they want. So during this summer, they would go down the basement where all the tables and chairs were, and they decided they were going to play Dungeons and Dragons over the summer. Well, what they really got into doing more than anything else was creating characters, and then their friend would want to join the group, and he would come in, and they'd create a character for him, and then they decided it'd be fun to create more than one character, so they could do different games with different characters, and they pretty much spent the whole summer just creating characters because they thought it was so much fun that they never actually got to play the game by the time they got to go back to school. So, character creation can be apparently exciting and addictive to some people, but don't worry, it's a fun process, and I will guide you through it. And once that is done, you will be ready to go on adventures.